I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want. All that is socialism, much of it appropriate to soften the edges of capitalism, but the DSA are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more.
Bernie Sanders has moved from talking about rich elites to strongly promoting socialism. And Bill Maher is not staying quiet about it. The sharp comedian criticized Sanders for being hypocritical, pointing out that he himself became successful because of capitalism. His comments were strong, direct, and very critical of Sanders' ideas about socialism. It was a bold and clear attack on Sanders' message. So, let's get straight into it and see what he had to say.
Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week. Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet.
Maher highlights something that many people seem to ignore. Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Zoran Mamdani often describe themselves as simple social democrats, but their ideas are actually much closer to full socialism. For those who don't know the difference, here is an easy explanation. Social democrats support capitalism, but with strong government support systems to help people. The market still runs the economy, but the government makes sure things stay fair. Socialists, however, go further. They want major industries to be owned or controlled by the government, reducing the role of private businesses. This difference is important, and Maher is not afraid to point it out.
Again, this is against why people sometimes, I think, question some of what you're saying. This is a survey, student loan forgiveness recipients. 73% of applicants say they are likely to spend their extra money on non-essential, including vacations, smartphone, drugs, and alcohol. They admitted that to the pollster.
Who is this pollster?
NBC News. 52% they are very likely to buy new clothing. 46% they would use the money for vacation and eat out at restaurants. This is why people have a thing about, I would never call it free money, like I guess I just did.
According to Maher, this connects to the core American mindset. Most Americans do not support the idea of the country becoming a heavily controlled socialist system where the government controls basic needs like food and services. People in America value freedom, personal choice, and the ability to build their own success. Even though the system has problems, surveys show that most people still prefer capitalism over strict government control. They want improvement, not total change. That's why Maher believes Sanders and his supporters will struggle to succeed. Their ideas may sound good in speeches, but in reality, many people don't trust that kind of system. However, this does not mean the solution is to jump fully into socialism. Maher agrees that the problems Sanders talks about are real and come from the negative sides of capitalism. But fixing these issues does not require destroying the whole system. Problems like rising costs, corporate greed, and financial stress on young people need practical solutions, not extreme ideas. For example, student loan debt is a major issue. Instead of canceling all loans and putting the burden on taxpayers, Maher suggests better solutions like limiting tuition increases, improving income-based repayment plans, and encouraging companies to help employees pay their loans. This way, responsibility stays balanced while people still get relief.
I don't think people realized we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want. All that is socialism, much of it appropriate to soften the edges of capitalism, but the DSA are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more.
Maher also warns Democrats about giving too much power to leaders like Sanders and Mamdani. He explains that the U.S. already has programs like Social Security, Medicare, and public education, which help people without replacing capitalism. These systems are meant to support citizens, not take over the economy. But Maher believes that newer leaders are not satisfied with this balance. They're pushing for bigger changes that move closer to full socialism, with more government control over many areas. He also mentions concerns about policies like more relaxed border rules, which critics say could create security problems. For Maher, this is not just idealism, but a risky experiment.
Think you're going to win an election on that? This just seems like more extremism at a time when Americans are begging both parties, please, could just one of you act normal? It's either defund the police or military in the streets. Either MAGA's crypto crony capitalism or city-run grocery stores. No, I don't want that. I want a Democrat who reassures me if you like your Whole Foods, you can keep your Whole Foods.
Maher gives a serious warning to the Democratic Party. He says they might lose power for a long time if they continue following extreme ideas like socialism. According to him, the party keeps chasing whatever trend is popular among activists. In the past, it focused heavily on wokeness, which pushed away moderate voters. Now, he believes socialism has become the new focus. At the same time, ordinary people are worried about real issues like high costs, weak border control, and cultural changes. Maher argues that instead of focusing on practical solutions, the party is getting lost in unrealistic ideas that appeal to social media, but not to actual voters.
Governor-elect Spanberger once said about Biden's presidency that, quote, nobody elected him to be FDR. They elected him to be normal. Normal! You know, at this year's DSA convention, or as it's commonly known, Comic-Con, get this, you had to submit a photo of a negative COVID test to get in 2025. Yeah, no one wants to do that again.
Maher believes the Democratic Party will not win major elections again until it returns to basic, practical politics. He says people are tired of constant ideological changes, cultural conflicts, and political performances. Many Democrats, even insiders, share this concern. The party has become too focused on symbolic issues instead of real-life problems. Maher says it's time for them to move away from extreme ideas and focus on things that truly matter, like cost of living, border security, economic strength, public safety, and effective government. These are the issues that voters care about. If they don't change, Maher believes they will keep losing support from moderate voters.
Democratic socialists at another of their conventions, they were told to make jazz hands instead of clapping, lest some delegate suffer sensory overload. And also, and I'm not joking, they were told not to be wearing, any aggressive scents.
Please don't go into that space with anything that's like an aggressive scent, for instance, right? Because that's going to be difficult for people.
Oh, this... Really? This is who the Democrats are thinking of following? Chuck Schumer ain't perfect, but at least he doesn't crumple into a heap when confronted with Chanel number 5. You may now clap in the traditional way.
Maher also criticizes what he sees as a mix of woke culture and extreme left economic ideas. He makes fun of things like replacing normal applause with gestures like jazz hands, saying it feels more like a performance than serious politics. He argues that this style focuses more on showing ideological purity than being professional or effective. According to him, when wokeness and socialism combine, everything becomes about symbols instead of real action. People become overly careful about what they say, trying not to offend anyone. This creates an environment where confidence and clarity are lost, and many voters find it frustrating and unrealistic.
When FDR was president, when Truman was president, even when JFK was president, you go out on the street and you say to people, which party represents the working class of America? Most people, I think, agree, would have said the Democratic Party.
Correct.
All right. Today you go out on the street and that is not the sentiment. In fact, the Republican Party probably has more adherents than the Democrats.
How did that happen?
I'll tell you how it happened. It happened because 30 years ago, the Democrats said, hey, Republicans are getting all this corporate money. We want it too. Let's go out and get it. And let's forget about the people who are working 50 or 60 hours a week. So you're sitting out there somewhere in the Midwest. You can't afford health care. Maybe your job went to China and you're earning half of what you used to make. Your kid can't afford to go to college.
Maher explains that people are not simply moving toward Republicans for no reason. He believes the real issue is that Democrats have lost focus on everyday problems. Instead of helping working-class people, they're focusing on cultural debates and identity issues that don't improve daily life. As a result, many traditional supporters feel ignored. Workers dealing with high costs, families struggling financially, and communities facing crime and weak public services feel left behind. Maher says the party is trying too hard to impress small online groups instead of addressing real concerns. This is why voters are shifting away. Not because Republicans are perfect, but because Democrats are losing focus.
How to restore hope to the American people. Working class are the majority of people in this country. They are hurting. After 50 years of exploding technology, they're earning less than they did before. All right?
You sound like you're running again. Third
I'm just talking about the book here.
Third time the charm? People usually write a book when they're about to run.
No.
In the end, Maher agrees that the problems Sanders talks about are real, but he disagrees with the solutions. He argues that combining wokeness and socialism would make things worse. Wokeness makes people afraid to speak freely, while socialism increases government control and limits innovation. Together, they create a system focused on ideology instead of practical results. Instead of solving issues like high costs, student debt, and economic struggles, this approach could slow progress and create more problems. Maher believes people want real solutions that improve their lives, protect their freedom, and support working families. His final message is clear. America needs practical ideas, not extreme experiments. If the Democratic Party does not change direction, it risks losing more support in the future. And with that, the discussion comes to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.